Oh, yes, guys, we're back. How is the sound? First and foremost, how is the sound? Always have someone telling me sound is too low, sound is too high. Let us know that. But as you can see, we have the gang reassembled. The gang is back. We're back live. Hopefully, we're live also on YouTube. I'm actually checking right now. Let's see. Check. Oh, yes, we're live. We're live. Perfect. So, guys, we have a lot to discuss. Is the pump over? The Bears are celebrating. They're telling me, hey, Ivan, we're going to go back to 30. Just like they told us. Well, they told us at 15K that we will go back to 10. Then they told us at 25 that we're going to go back to 20. Now they're telling us we're going to go back to 30. The question is, will we or will we not? We have all kinds of news, guys, with the altcoins, with Bitcoin, with DEXs, Thorchain going absolutely ballistic. We have Cathy Woods potentially paper handing Bitcoin, or maybe she's just preparing for the ETF. But all of that and more in a few minutes. Welcome, CTO. Welcome, James. How are you doing? How was your weekend? It's Monday yet again.
Finally Monday, and what a week in the markets. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it. Finally.
And CTO, I got a comment on your background. You look amazing. You look like a game character selection window, ready to be selected for gameplay.
I've always been AI generated, so you busted.
James, what about you? How was the weekend?
Good. Quite. We didn't get the usual pump. I think people are worried now that the spot ETF isn't coming, or may not come until January, or the price may be factored in. So we're seeing a little bit of kind of weakness and more rotation as well into other names. The butterflies are moving on to different flowers right now, like Rune and others. So we're seeing that rotation happening too. But Ethereum did pump today, which is good. So that's a positive sign.
And we gotta congratulate
Solana. We always joked, right? Solana support team. How have you felt this week?
Well, it's been this last 6 weeks. It's been interesting. Yeah, people made fun of me a year ago, and there were memes going around of me with a Solana help desk radio thing on my head and everything else. But it's okay. It's nice to see fundamentals and pumpamentals work. So that's very, very important. We'll look at some data.
Is there a saying in English, or is it only in our native language that the person who laughs the best is the person who laughs last?
Yes,
otherwise
same
we can
thing.
bring it into the English language.
Yeah, no, it's dead right.
On this note, guys, let's jump into the first topic. This is a topic that we covered on our channel this morning, but I would love to get your opinion. And this is basically an article that discusses the fact that the general population is starting to lose trust in the Fed, that the Fed can control inflation. We have record demand, although we have high inflation, meaning that people don't want to hold fiat. They want to get rid of it. Like in Venezuela, you get paid, you get rid of it. Just like when I was a kid in Belarus, and it's still the case, you don't want to hodl the fiat because it goes to zero so quickly. You need to spend it. And so what happens when you do? You just fuel inflation even more because no one wants to hold it. No one wants to touch it. Just, throw it as fast as possible. And that's like a self-perpetuating motion of inflation. So what's your take on this? Do you think that the general public right now has lost the faith in the government, in the Fed, kind of like we in Bitcoin have been for years and years and years? Has the general public understood, or what's happening here in your view?
James, do you want to start?
James?
Sure. I actually created some notes too, if you want. Let me see if they pop up here. So just some talking points. I always said that the 2% has always been a joke. I can blow it up if you guys want to see. I covered in yesterday's video things like shadow stats and fiat printing and car prices and Apple prices, you name it. Everything goes up by a lot. Somebody had a question, why do you believe, $100 will debase by 50% over 10 years? And I showed a lot of historical data to prove that. And then what's also very interesting is last week, Moody's came out with a negative outlook on the US, and the bond auction only came in at 2.2x, which is catastrophic. And international buyers are down to 60%. Normally, most of the people buying US debt, because it's the so-called pristine asset in the world, historically, is now down to 60%. The Chinese are dumping, the Japanese are dumping. It's crazy. There's no faith in US debt. There was also a funny story where I think it was last week, Jerome Powell was caught on a hot mic, and he said, shut the bleep bleep door. So you can tell he's stressed. The Treasury is a mess. The Fed has a problem. The whole 2% narrative is fake. We all know it's more like 10 to 14% every year, and it's going to get higher. And if you look at other data, like let me show one more chart as well, which is probably more important, is this one, as the interest on debt. I mean, it's going hyperbolic. The US government passed the 1 trillion mark in interest payments already, and it'll be 2 trillion next year. The end is near. Okay, that's it. That's all you need to know. It is spiraling out of control real fast. So that's my take on inflation and debt. The problems are very, very catastrophic and very serious.
And what you just said, James, here about that it's going to go higher. It's going to go higher, probably double as high when it comes to servicing the debt. So the current, according to Mike, the current average interest rate on federal debt is 2.6%. And prevailing interest rate right now is over 5%. And we will have roughly half of all treasuries maturing by the end of 2025. So if 50% of all treasuries are maturing, they're going to basically be double in interest rate. So this is the overall interest rate is then going to be less than double, but still this is massive. And at the same time, not only will this roll over, they also need more debt. So no one has canceled more debt. So all of this now coming together, and here we are. Oops, sorry, as you can see here. And here we are in the Bitcoin land, kind of on the sidelines, just watching this whole Hindenburg Zeppelin explode in real time, still in slow motion, but it's always first slowly, then suddenly. CTO, what's your view on this? How are you protecting yourself from the Hindenburg?
Yeah, I think it is hard assets. It's hard assets that will perform well when something like this happens in fiat. So, I mean, for a long time, the answer would have been gold, right? Now we have digital gold also. And so far, it seems like this narrative it could pick up mainstream recognition. It's easy to understand. Everyone knows gold. Everyone knows we're living more digitally. Digital gold is a good proposition. So, yeah, I definitely. Then what will happen with the economy, actually? I have this question to you, James. What actually happens to the economy if inflation and inflation expectation is higher for longer? That's the term, right? Higher for longer. What happens then and why? I don't really get it.
Well, what they've been doing for the last 25, 30 years is they've been refining how they measure inflation. They use lagging indicators. They do physical surveys where they have people literally with a clipboard walking into a store and asking people how much they're paying and everything. It is ridiculous. If you want to know the true situation, you go to Trueflation. I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to continue cooking the books like they do with labor numbers and every other number too, to pretend like everything's okay. I also did another post yesterday about the actual job market. The vast majority of jobs created this year in the United States are all government jobs. There's no other jobs being created. And that's kind of the dirty little secret. So it's all literally everything you hear from the government and mainstream media, it's all contrived, it's all fake, it's all manipulated. And over time, inflation will accelerate because there's more money chasing too few goods. But there is a little caveat to that, and that is people are now poorer than ever before because of inflation. But with the debt spiral and the amount of money creation, it's just literally, this is why, 3 years ago, if we spoke about the Great Reset, we'd think, well, that's not going to happen. Now it's looking like, okay, that's the escape hatch to solve a lot of these problems. And that's why we Bitcoin. So things are just happening. Everything's happening much faster than we ever expected, which is shocking.
Yeah. I didn't think it would get this bad this fast if thinking back like a couple of years, actually. So, yeah.
And speaking about the media, I think we all share the distrust towards it. And there is something interesting going on here with the media where each and every day, almost each and every day, there is some news that comes out against Bitcoin. And especially now with this whole Israel situation. I just saw a recent one before we went live. Let me share this here, and then I'm going to share the screen. So now we have this right here, where yet again, they found some new trace to the Hamas and all of this. And basically, they're saying you have. I mean, what they've said is is that they found $2,000 worth of crypto that was actually linked to this organization. And they're still pushing articles, and it never stops. There's always something new. Is this a strategy in your mind, James and CTO, to ensure that the normies don't understand Bitcoin, that they don't even try to get it, that they're instantly repelled? Is it just some lost souls within the journalistic profession, or is this truth that we're not understanding, that we're lost souls, we're ultra bulls? What do you guys think? Let's start with you, James, and then go to CTO.
Well, it was proven by, I think it was Chain Analysis, that the total amount used to fund this recent event was pennies, like a really tiny fraction of the total amount. So people like Elizabeth Warren were wrong. And even people who were pro crypto came out and said, oh, this is terrible. Let's jump on this narrative. We got to stop this crypto. And then they had to backtrack a week or two later. So I think the last scenario definitely is not true. But mainstream media is very much threatened from many different sides. Mainstream media also is funded. You got to look at who pays for the advertising for mainstream media. It tends to be big TradFi. It tends to be big pharma, big food, big auto. So all their narratives have to conform to a certain type of thing. And also, if you look at, there was a crazy number of videos where they have like real-time news coming out from many, many different local news stations, and they're all saying the exact same thing at the same time, which means that there's a greater power that controls the narrative. So I think a lot of this is just fear. It's kind of similar to kind of the media being absolutely terrified and so hateful for Elon Musk because he threatens them in a big way by exposing truth. And now we're seeing, actually, it was funny because the guy called Joe Kernan, who I've been watching for more than 30 years, came out and he was very anti-Elon for the longest time. I said, you know what? I like this guy now because he's no longer afraid of speaking truth to power and exposing truths about things like the W Lab and stuff like that. So it's just super interesting, all the stuff that's changing and going on right now. Sorry about that. Turn my phone off.
Cecilio, what's your take on mainstream media? I mean, for the longest time, I think most people believed was on the TV, even when you look at my generation. I mean, and older generation is always a bit slower to get off the mainstream media bandwagon, with many exceptions as well. But in general, still most people in the world believe mainstream media. The younger generation, who is more on Twitter, more on socials. Okay. No worries, James. The younger generation, I feel, is a bit more aware, potentially. I mean, not all of them. What's your view on the situation, CTO? So we kind of discussed this, if your friends from your old job believe in this Bitcoin stuff that we do or not. What's your view?
Yeah, I think one thing we have to understand is the word propaganda. So propaganda is something that we in the Western world, we think it's something that is done in some banana republic somewhere or something like that. No, it's the job of the lobbyist organizations. And the thing with propaganda is that it doesn't need to be true. It does not need to be true to have impact. So I mean, for sure, there are people now who will keep saying $130 million Hamas crypto, $130 million Hamas crypto, in different permutations. As we saw, was it 3 weeks ago or something? It's already been debunked. It wasn't like that. It was complete misunderstanding of how wallets work and things like that. It wasn't. They come out and clarified it. Even the newspapers have published some sort of hard to understand correction that, then it wasn't like that. Doesn't matter. They will keep pushing it. Now they pushed it again. It's already been debunked. They who write the article, they know it's not true. It doesn't matter. Just write it again. So there is for sure an element of that. But I think the silver lining here is that something is changing. And this whole ETF talk, it's not only talk, because there was news today, for example, in Bloomberg about UBS allows wealthy clients to trade crypto ETFs in Hong Kong, joining HSBC, who already did it before. So one insight that I had actually is that I think that the banks are going to come on our side. And I think it will happen soon. Because if they have the ETF option to push, it is completely harmless for them. There is no risk that they accidentally take in one client who actually is a terrorist, because they're not handling the money as such. And number two, it's already integrated in their system. So they have the clients, they have the systems to buy and sell it. And that means number three, they're going to make money on this. So,
Yeah,
and that
but
might
what's gonna
change a
happen?
lot of the
My
narrative,
fear,
because just to
but
add the last point, I think the narrative is coming from the bank lobbyists. I think they are the ones pushing it, and they might change 180 degrees here. That's my point.
Yeah, but so here's my fear, that they are then instantly gonna push banning self-custody, because it's in their interest that you buy the ETF and not self-custody. So I agree with you that they are on our side now, like the BlackRocks and all the banks, because then they can access BlackRock ETF and resell it and stuff like that. And they are starting to change tune. Like you saw, we had the news about Hong Kong opening up for Bitcoin, and probably the rest of the world will as well from the banking perspective. But what do you think about this argument that very soon afterwards they will realize we don't need self-custody, and everyone who is doing self-custody is a potentially lost client to us, so let's ban it. Let's have it like in the UK. I mean, just UK right now, it's a good topic as well to discuss, that Gemini in the UK, they banned withdrawals to your own wallet. You can only withdraw to other like licensed exchanges. Well, what do you think about this danger? You think it's going to happen?
Definitely danger, for sure. But the fact that they start realizing that this is not only like witchcraft, we are not witches, and that should burn on the stake. Actually, they start making a lot of money, and real money, because people want to invest in it, and suddenly they're in the game. I think it will change the tone. I think it will be a more nuanced discussion, and they will kind of start wanting to engage and realize that there are actually a lot of solutions to prevent the actual terrorist financing, the actual money laundering, and all the things that all law-abiding citizens are actually interested in doing. I mean, everyone. We don't want criminals to be able to exploit this either. We're all on the same side here. So I think that when they go in there, the money starts rolling in, they will engage in a different way, not just like ban everything, don't say the dangerous B word.
James, hope everything is all right, and
Yeah.
welcome back.
It was
Did
sorry
you hear
about
what
that.
we
It's never
discussed
happened
about?
before. It was an emergency call that I've been waiting for like 6 weeks, and it's rare you can get this one particular company. Anyway, yes, sir.
So did you hear what we discussed about the fact that the BlackRocks and the banks of the world, they will potentially change their tune on self-custody, that they will start being more anti-self-custody? Well, they are already anti-self-custody, but more publicly, that the bank lobbyists will go from lobbying against Bitcoin to lobbying specifically against self-custody, because they will have Bitcoin ETF to sell. And if you do self-custody, they're losing clients. So is that something that we may see in the future? Because we're already seeing it in the UK. Gemini UK, like we discussed with CTO, they removed the option to withdraw to your own wallet. You can only withdraw to other like accredited exchanges. I will link to afterwards. It happened last week, so it's a very big news. They basically didn't want to have the compliance process to review your address that is your own. So how do you view this potential problem?
Well, I already see a lot of marketing materials around kind of being your own bank requires a lot of operational security and caution, and it also brings with it a lot of risk. Like, even large corporations, suppose there was some VC fund or some fund or whatever lost $500,000 or $500 million worth of ETH a week or two ago. So I think what they're going to do is be very careful. I think, yes, it is a threat, self-custody to the ETFs. I think those insecure operations will fight it and warn customers against it, because it is risky. If you don't have your game together, it can be very dangerous, no doubt about that. But I think others will kind of embrace it too. They'll realize. But I think if there is a very cost-effective ETF solution, it is better and safer maybe than self-custody for many people, the vast majority of people. And you guys are both technologists, and you know what can go wrong. And you know exactly, if you're talking to your grandmother, hey grandma, can you move this to your wallet, and then can you go to this swap and you do this, etc. It is kind of daunting to many people. So I think from that perspective, it's okay to say, but I'm shocked about the Gemini news in the UK. Or was it Kraken or Gemini?
Sorry?
Was it Kraken or Gemini in the UK?
I think it's Gemini UK that did it. I have it on my Twitter from last week. So we discussed the situation with the inflation, with potential problem with the banks, with the fact that mainstream media is spreading the FUD, and that we're here watching the Hindenburg collapse. CTO, let's pull up the charts. Let's go into the price action, and let's see what's happening from a charting perspective, because like we introduced, like the point we made in the introduction, that bears are right now salivating a bit. They're not celebrating fully yet because we haven't even dumped. We're actually very close to 37K, but they are salivating, and they will be telling us that they knew it. If we go down to 30K, it's going to be big celebration in the bear camp. How does it look like from the chart perspective?
Yeah, so the situation is so clear, guys, and it's wonderful that it played out this well. Just to recap, we had a major inverse head and shoulders that confirmed we went into this slow and boring range that we called time capitulation. It's good terms to learn for the future. We had price capitulation. That was 2022. A lot of people quit. But then my perception is that even more people actually quit here because it got so boring. Nothing happened for half a year. We three were sitting here entertaining each other, talking to each other. Engagement was at rock bottom, even worse than after the total dump when everything was down. So that's time capitulation. Even harder to not give up, because then actually something happened. We got another inverse head and shoulders here in the chart. Trend turned up. We broke out and from this range, and boom, we shot up very high from here. The obvious resistance level from here is really around 40K, a little bit above 40K. And yeah, I mean, looking at the targets, I'd expect that we would get there. And what happens then? No idea. Could we go up here to 40K, bounce down to 30K, and then run up again? Absolutely. But I think a good way to think about this is that the unexpected has to happen. The markets are there to transport money from many people, many amateurs, into the pockets of few professionals. That's why the markets exist. So that's the game. How to do that then? Well, let's look at the history. When this was at the bottom, no one thought it would go up. It seemed impossible. We talked about it here, but not many people did. So then they were sidelined when it started running up, and in disbelief the whole way up here. Then when we broke out again now, it was a very hated rally. You didn't see much cheering going on X or formerly Twitter when we were round up here, because most people were sidelined. Okay, what will not happen is that the market will comfortably let everyone get on the ship. Hello, is there someone still not on? Please come and join, because soon the boat is leaving and then it's going to run up. That's not going to happen, guys. That is the only thing I can assure you. So I think that we have to go up until everyone has gone long. Everyone feels like, this is so boring. I'm only up 2% today. I need to go 10x long now. So I go up 20% instead. I'm not making enough money. So people buy bigger with higher leverage, and then boom, down. And then it need to go down enough. Cannot just go to 30K, because everyone would put their stop loss at 30K. So you have to run it a little bit below that, liquidate everyone. And then when everyone starts writing that it was a fake, ETF is not coming, it's over, it was wrong, all the bears were right, and we three here are idiots, that's when we start running up again. So I think the overall advice here is that expect the unexpected. If you see everyone on Twitter have gone long now, everyone is a bull, okay, then watch out. But I don't think we're there yet. I still feel a lot of people are sidelined, they're bears, they're hoping for a dump to happen now. So I don't think it's going to happen yet.
Yeah, and I think what's important to note here is that we're all bulls here, but we're also self-aware. Like, I know that I am a unreasonable, like bullish like hell, and we're gonna get smacked one day. Like you say, we're probably gonna dump at some point, maybe even very heavily, to flush out all the FOMO when everyone is on board. But it's only gonna be temporary, and that's the big difference. That we know that I mean, at some point when everyone is super bullish, exuberant, everyone is on board, it will have a shakeout, because it's never easy. Like, no Bitcoin bull market is easy. It always shakes the tree to get everyone as uncertain as possible before it continues to the upside. And that's why, whether you're using the Larson line or the money line, you need to have some kind of guidance. So on the Larson line, for example, you see that we are in a bullish trend. So even though we dump, there's a very good chance that we still are bullish. And when the trend is up, it's up.
The ideal situation is a dump in the uptrend. That's the best that could happen. So
yeah,
that is
you get to accumulate.
I mean, buying the dip is true when we're in an uptrend, but you don't buy the dip in the downtrend. But you know, BTFM is true in an uptrend. So that's of course. Let's hope for that.
And James, what about you? I mean, you're also a massive bull, Solana bull, Bitcoin bull, ETH bull as well. How do you view this pullback potential, and what's your game plan to buy more? How do you split it up? Do you go 10% in the next pullback, that you deploy 10% of your dry powder, or 50%? How do you approach this?
I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago I deployed everything. So I went from
all in
about 15% cash to nothing. I did make a purchase last Friday. I bought more Solana at $45, which was the highest I've paid for years. All the previous purchases were under 22. But it just seemed like a good opportunity. And I had to also do it for some other reasons too, because one of the team members likes to get paid in Solana. So, but yeah, I think when I watch kind of the money flow and the on-chain and everything else, all roads lead to it staying flat or going up. There is a little bit of resistance. You know, our next step, I always break it down into different steps. I don't know if you guys do that, but the next step of major resistance is $42,000. And that used to be support back in the day, way back. So we will be going probably, you know, my goal was always 35 to 42K by April 2024. But now that everything has happened so fast and moved so fast, we're probably going to get to 42K before the 10th of January. And then we have another 3 months after that. But there will be a lot of resistance and profit taking at 42,000. And we'll see how it goes. But it is a very, very exciting time. And yeah, the ETH has been interesting. I have a legacy bag of ETH that basically bought all on one day in March 2020. And been holding it ever since. And I don't know what to do with it, because the upside is maybe 150% from here. And that's, as CTO said, it's not very exciting anymore when you see other things going up 500% or 1200%. So that's a bit of a vexing thing. But I also manage risk, so I don't want to get into too much risky stuff. And I already have 2 little risky holdings that I believe, like Injective and Render. You know, I did look at Rune actually. It was close there because I'm big into the DEXs. I believe DEXs are the future, but I didn't nibble. I remember I missed Rune by a penny in the last bull run. I had a limit order at $3.01 and I hit $3.02 and just missed. But glad in hindsight. But then it was back down there again. So we'll see where things go. But you know, I believe much more in good quality names that have good product market fit, good adoption, make good fees, and have a bright future. And that's how I distinguish where I play. And I don't chase things with poor tokenomics or things that pump. I always say, don't chase, replace.
We have a question from the chat as well in regards to all the charts and all the bullishness from Bilal. Thanks for the donation, by the way. Hi, Ivan. Where do you think Sol is heading next? We have the best person to answer that here, and that's James. And if you are interested in Solana, guys, go to James' channel. I mean, he has like hours and hours and hours of content, and every week there is new. So go there. So, James, in your view, now that we did go from below 20 to above 60, now we're at 55. What's next?
Yeah, I actually have let me try screenshot this, see if I can share this with you all. Let me see. Yeah, I can. Okay, let me try pop this up, and this will answer that question very specifically. I put this together actually yesterday, and this is basically looking back at history and what could happen to ETH price as a percentage of market caps from the previous all-time high market caps for different names. Now, I've always had this thesis for years now, nearly 3 years, that I believed Solana would exceed market cap of Cardano. It did that. Then the next step was 6% of ETH market cap. It did that. Then 10% of ETH market cap. It breached it, and it's just now at that level approximately right now. Actually, a little bit lower because ETH took a bit of a run today. And then next step is ETH 20% market cap. But what happens if you break down the all-time high market cap of these assets? We know that ETH market cap at all-time high was $572 billion. Cardano was $95 billion. What would happen, given the current amount of tokens on Solana, which is 422 million, what would happen if Solana got to Cardano market cap in the last bull run? I like thinking these things out loud, and that would take us to $224. That is, even though it sounds like crazy hopium, it's achievable. Now, if we go to, again, say 20% of ETH market cap at the all-time high, that takes us to 271 and 406 and so on at 30% ETH market cap. So that's just a few images of where I believe we could go conservatively. If you want to take the average of all of those price targets, it takes us to 151. So 151 is my new kind of sandbag level. And I also have other models that take into account Metcalfe's law and fees and adoption and value per daily active user, that type of stuff. So I'm coming out with a new price model within a week or two.
There you go, Bilal. So for more of that, go check out James' channel. And CTO, I mean, based on the chart, it's obviously bullish or up only to the right. Where is the next resistance? I mean, the next resistance is basically, up there. 80, what is it? Let's check it.
It's actually hard to say. Perhaps there is a resistance here on the BTC chart where we hit now. If you look on the right here, you see something called volume profile. That's where a lot of coins have changed hands, and that's actually where it turned now. So the reason that works is that people remember price levels. If you bought, or say that you bought there one day and then you held it through the bull market and you bear market, and you felt bad, and you feel if price ever hits that again, I'm going to cut it. I haven't slept for 1 year, 2 years. I'm going to cut it if it ever hits that again. And price hits that again, they sell. So that's why support and resistance levels work, because people remember the levels. So that maybe I had this line drawn before here. You see that's where it turned. Perhaps that was the resistance. If we break through that, it's quite a bit higher here to the next resistance levels. On the USD chart, I have no idea. I don't really, my process isn't predicting prices. So that's why it's so interesting to hear both your guys' perspective, because you have a complementing perspective. I don't really set price targets for crypto. I just notice, as you remember, because we talked about it here on the DCA stream, we had an inverse head and shoulders in the chart. We talked about it. I took a position and trend turned up and we broke out. So I didn't know. I didn't think it would go this high, this far, this fast. I didn't know that. I just saw that it looks like there is someone buying here, and a big player is sitting accumulating coins. They're not telling it on social media. They try not to move the price, but we can spot it. We can see it. They can't hide in the chart, because when you buy, something happens with the chart. And that's the characteristic of the inverse head and shoulder. We spotted it, and turns out that, that was probably accumulation point, and price shot off. And who was that? Why did they do it? I have no idea. I don't care. I just noticed that someone did it. And that means I'm interested. And it worked. That's a fact.
And speaking about another alt that recently launched, let's switch topics a bit towards well, one thing more on Solana. As we are seeing all of the spam and all of the excitement, it seems that institutions are following into this grayscale Solana trust, and they either don't know about the premium, or they don't understand it, or something else is happening. What is happening here? James, you're probably the best to tell us here. How can the premium be at 700, 800%? Bitcoin had also a premium in the bull market. It was 40%. But here, it's got to be that they don't understand what the...
Whoa. Did we lose? Hello, do we lose everybody?
I'm removing so that you can be full screen. But yeah, please enlighten us.
Yeah, so I've been modeling discounts, proxy discounts for years, and we've been well aware of the GSOL premium for a long time, but that's typically what Grayscale does. There's even a G-Link premium as well. Other things have kind of flowed through discounts, and that's the big problem with ETFs, because they don't track the price exactly, but what they do is they sell shares in the fund to high net worth people early, and people buy millions and millions, and then they dump it on retail slowly. So the same scam has happened with GBTC, happened with ETH, and then eventually it'll go to a discount. But that is quite egregious that they're allowed to do that. And I'm pretty sure that that's one of the things that Gary Gensler does not like about how Grayscale operate. They cater to the rich and then abuse the poor, that FOMO in. But even that being said, even if you bought GSOL at this crazy premium, it still went up. So they still made money. So it's all about catching things at the right time.
I mean, the market is not efficient. That's why I'm saying that probably no one is even looking at the premium. They just search Solana in their like brokerage app, and they see Grayscale Solana. Okay, buy, and then it also follows Solana, so you never even notice that it's a big premium because it actually increases. And maybe it even increases more than Solana, which it did because it went to 700%.
And the Bitwise products were even worse back in the day. Do you remember Bitwise? They had crazy stuff. They were selling like, I don't know, you could buy a fund that had maybe 10% of Bitcoin in it. 90% was premium, like in the early days back in 2021. And people didn't know, because that's kind of the sad thing for everybody, is like they're FOMOing in. They look at their brokerage account, they see what's hot, and the only thing they can get access to are these criminal type of products, which is sad. Very sad.
It's bizarre. I don't know if you guys saw it. I had this this Switzerland-based guy, Valor. I'm not doing any recommendations, or I don't have any deals. It's not a recommendation for anyone, but there are these ETP products that's already available that these people can go and buy, and that doesn't trade at the premium. It trades at the actual Solana price. But I think most people just don't know about it. So it's like you say, they go in, they see one thing that's called Solana, and they buy it. They don't realize they're buying it at 8 times the price when there is something else which is probably also available to them. They just haven't seen it, which is trading at 1x from the actual coin. It's very funny. Very funny. I think you're on mute, Ivan.
Oops, sorry, yes. So let's move on to Celestia. It's a relatively new coin, has been doing quite well in the first days. And a big difference between Celestia and other coins that have been hyped is that it launched at a relatively low market cap if you compare it to like Aptos or Sui. So early investors who were buying it early are actually up. And that's a big difference to what we've seen previously. And just as a short primer on Celestia, it's this modular blockchain where developers can pick and choose the execution environment and the different parts of the blockchain. I'm still yet to see some app using this, or some use case or something that is using this and is big and being deployed and many users and so on and so forth. But I know that devs love this, like the dev community, they adore this, and that's why it's quite a hyped project. Although from a app perspective, I think it's still quite early, and I'm very curious how it does in your book, James, because you have this scoring of the coins. Did you have time to put it in the system yet? And what do you think?
Oh, what do you think, Ivan?
Well, I don't know. I'm asking you, but
Definitely.
from the
Yeah,
very
it is.
basics, it should be better than the other ones we looked at before.
Yeah, it's in the system, and you know when so there's a couple of problems with new projects when they launch. They have no adoption, they have no dApps, they have no fees, etc. It's all pumped, it's all hype, it's all based on promises. And I see this in the same category as Aptos and Sui. There is a little bit of a difference. They did launch kind of a little bit higher, but literally the tokenomics for Aptos and Sui are horrific. But Celestia tokenomics are even worse. They're worse. So when you buy this thing, you're going into a buzzsaw of inflation. Okay, so dumping tokens for years, unless this thing blows to like a $30 billion market cap real fast, it's going to be hard. And we're talking real fast over the next year and a half. It's going to be hard for retail investors to make money on it. It still will pump, but you know that's the crazy thing about. It reminds me of electric vehicles makers. There were so many scam EV makers in the early days, and it's like they were buying a vision, but execution is a different kettle of fish altogether. And I'm sure CTO, you've got something to say about that too. How do you bring adoption to the actual platform? How do you onboard 350,000 daily active users? How do you create 100 dApps that are sticky with people? And how do you generate fees? And how easy is it for the technologists to build these dApps that, you know, could be the next big thing? That's what's very difficult to ascertain at the beginning. Yes, it may pump. It may go to $10 billion market cap out of the box, exceeding that of something like Cardano, but who knows? I just see way more risk than reward right now for these things based on tokenomics. What do you think, CTO?
But isn't that a function of it just being a new project? I mean, inflation is not that, because inflation is inflation and this token release. But the fact that, like you said, it's a new project, so it has by definition no users, nothing. So, do you have any weighting in your system against that, like to correct for that, to still give the new projects a chance to shine?
Yeah, exactly. Everything is weighted. And as I said before, even with a weighted basis, it's worse than Aptos and Sui. And we know exactly how they performed. Now, the difference between Celestia and Aptos and Sui. Aptos and Sui launched in the bear. So they had, you know, low morale, weak demand, and the buzzsaw of token inflation. This one launched into a pump. And if you launch something into a pump, it's going to pump. Take the last bull run back in 2021. You could launch any crap coin, it'll go to the moon. And that's kind of maybe what's happening now. Now, I just don't like to invest in dreams or promises. I like to see real action. And I don't know. Now, there are people like Chris Berniski, who is, you know, very smart in the space, and he's a believer. He's a believer in this, and he's a believer in Solana. So that's kind of one of the positives for it, but it's still early. And I need to see more results before I risk my capital.
By the way, James, what do you think about BitBoy being the Sultan of Solana? And like I tweeted the other day, I'm gonna tell my kids this is the founder of Solana.
Well,
he's been leading the charge in the latest pump.
Well, I don't believe in monarchies or royalties or sultans. I believe everybody's equal. And if he understood the Solana culture, he'd know that would be the last thing you would call yourself. I think he should go back to his XRP and Cardano and stick there and fulfill the promises of, you know, the high prices from those tokens. I think he said XRP is going to $500 and Cardano is going to $100. So he should wait for those dreams to be fulfilled and then maybe find a new program, a new chain, perhaps. I don't know, but I don't follow the guy. I don't know much. It's weird because he had strong dislike for these and he was much more about other chains. So I don't know, but the name is wrong. You know, everybody should be equal.
And CTO, what about your view with the new projects like Celestia or others? I mean, I think I know what you're gonna say with the trends and waiting for it to be up in Bitcoin terms. Is there something else that you've been thinking about when it comes to new projects in terms of the tech or something else?
I I think a possibility. I try to think like, is it possible that this project could go somewhere? Like, because all altcoins, and especially new altcoins, the risks are enormous, guys, right? There's like 10 things that can go wrong any hour of any day. There's like rug pulls, technical failure, the team gets arrested, the team gets too rich, so they get bored. There's like everything can happen and probably will happen in some way or form. And then there's a slight chance that they make it. And then there has to be, if that happens, it has to have the possibility to go up big. Otherwise, why bother? Then just stick with Bitcoin or something like that. Because if taking on bigger risk, there has to be a bigger reward. That's at least possible. And of course, this one has pumped a lot. I have not bought any of this. So I don't know, actually. What I kind of wanted to add, to point out that I really agree with what James said. What I don't really like with many of these new projects is the skewed circulating supply versus total supply, because we really have this situation where, okay, so circulating supply, if this is correct, is 141 million, while the total supply is 1 billion. Okay, so they have released 14% of the tokens. The other 86% are yet to be released. And I know everyone hates, like, on the, I mean, the whole ICO craze got shut down and so on, but actually, in a way, it was more honest, because at that time, they released most of the tokens. Like, if you look back at all these projects that everyone forgot and actually started as ICOs, they actually released most of the tokens to the investors. While now they don't. They release a small section of the tokens and still hold the rest with different kinds of unlocks and programs and rewards and all that stuff. And yeah, that's kind of a little bit less honest, actually. And that makes it harder for projects to grow. I think it's a mistake. I think we'll see another phase of this where they go back to the previous model of releasing more of the tokens, trying to create more winners along the way instead of maximizing their own profit. I think they think that they're going to make more money that way, but I think actually they lower the chance of success. I think it's better to release more of the money. So that would be the problem that I see here with this project, just like James said.
And I can't help but notice that we are at all-time high at 2.3K on my channel for DCA. So thanks everyone for tuning in. The bull market is definitely here. Audience is returning and growing. I mean, that's the best part. Many new and old faces in the chat. Big shout out to Matt and Bernard for helping us mod the chat. And we have still many topics to cover. Let's go quickly to the next one. It has to do with DEXs. Thanks, CTO. I will close this one. We have a new, well, it's not a new DEX. It's quite established DEX, Thorchain, finally getting the adoption it deserves, because it is right now the third biggest DEX. Let's see. Let me share here like this, and then share this one, and then share this. So Thorchain, as you know, it's a DEX which is cross-chain. It works in a very simple way, where let's say you want to trade Bitcoin for ETH. You have your Bitcoin, you send Bitcoin to a specific address on the Bitcoin network that is controlled by the decentralized Thorchain network. And in the Bitcoin transaction, you specify that you want to sell this Bitcoin for this many ETH on the ETH blockchain, and you want to receive ETH to this address. You specify that. And yeah, and then you get your ETH on the ETH network. So you don't need like any special wallet or anything. You can just send Bitcoin. If you know how to format the transaction, and that's where you know your normal wallet would do it for you, it's enough. It's just text-based transaction, and this decentralized network ensures that whatever you send and whatever asset you specify that you want to get back on any chain, even ERC20s and everything works, that actually checks out and you get it back. And right now is the third largest DEX after Uniswap and Pancake. which is insane because it's grown very quickly. Just 6 months ago, I remember I interviewed Thorchain on Morales' channel. It was quite small, and I was wondering, why is it so small? It's such a brilliant, simple design. But since then, they've integrated into Shapeshift and Trust Wallet and many other wallets. So, guys, have you been following it? And what do you think is the significance of this? Because I think it also supports Solana. So if you are in the Solana camp, guys, in the chat, you should try. I haven't tried it with Solana, but try it. I mean, try to like sell Solana and get Bitcoin for it, or vice versa. And I can tell you, Bitcoin really needs this, because without this, there's no way to buy and sell Bitcoin in a decentralized way. Now you actually can. You have your Tether, buy Bitcoin, decentralized. So I love seeing this. I see, CTO, you pulled up something here. Tell us.
Yes, it's one of the projects that I've covered the most on my channel. I think it's over 3 years or something like that since I first covered it, because I love the technology. I felt, yes, this is what we need. Instead of wrapping one token on another chain, which has inherent unsolvable problems. Vitalik even shared an article about that. Was it 1.5 years ago or something like that? Can't be solved. What can be solved, which Thorchain solved as the only innovator, is actual layer 1 to layer 1 DEX. And these guys, I think it's 4 years now they have worked, and they've had all the problems. They've been hacked. The algorithm didn't work, so they had to backtrack. They've had all the problems under the sun. It stopped working. But these guys, they just come up and they go again. They work another day and can overcome all these challenges. Everyone's attacking them. And they just keep working for 4 years and actually doing something new that no one else has done. And I love that. I just love the innovation. This is what I love about this space. Few people can actually make a difference. And then for so long, they don't get that much recognition. As you say, the coin keeps going down. They just keep working. I love it. And that's why I felt they've deserved all the coverage that they've gotten. And I saw in one of the comments here, someone said, I don't know any technical analysis. So if you don't mind, I can share one more. I shared this
big mistake to comment that.
Exactly. So even sometimes, even a blind hen can find a seed. So here we found a Adam and Eve pattern. This is the Adam portion, and this is the Eve portion. The Adam portion is a little bit harder. And then that broke out. And then this horizontal line here is a support line. It used to be resistance, then it became support, and it held quite many times. And here we're talking about dumps in an uptrend. Here you can see it. Each of these dumps down to support level was also a valid entry, as well as the breakout point from the Adam and Eve pattern. I have not come up with technical analysis. It's been working for 100 years. It's working today in 2023 in the second half of the year with cryptocurrency Thorchain Rune. And here we are. It's a 5x up from this first breakout point there. And this one has been higher in the past. So I'm very happy to see that quality projects get recognition. This is why I'm here. And to come back to the point that we talked about before, this one has a better circulating to total supply ratio than the project that we just looked at before.
Exactly. I have a little data as well on the DEX volume for layer 1s and layer 2s, and it is incredibly impressive. I said one of my predictions for 2023 back in 2022 was DEX volume would exceed that of SEX volume, centralized exchange, not the other one. But this is also interesting too. Some more data. Obviously, Thorchain becomes the third largest DEX. Is the second largest now? I don't know if that's out of date. But also, if you look at how the DEX volume has changed on some of the layer 1s, layer 2s, like Arbitrum had a huge amount of volume, but it was just surpassed by Solana. Solana was $250 million in daily DEX volume a couple of weeks ago. Now it's nearly 450 million. So it's really grown. And Matic has fallen away hard because it's been eaten alive by Arbitrum. And that's typically what's going to happen. And I have a question for you actually on all of this too, is where do you guys see like the layer twos on ETH? They're all kind of eating each other. You know, they're all competing against each other. When does it end? And if sharding comes out, it'll make them kind of redundant, or will they still do a layer 2 on a shard basis? So instead of doing 10,000 TPS, they'll be doing 100,000 TPS. Where do you see all that going?
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I view it kind of like with the internet. You know, you can expand it, you can connect more servers, and what needs to happen with layer 2s is the cross-chain interoperability, what Chainlink is doing right now, for example, with CCIP, where if you do a trade on one layer 2, it can get routed to ETH mainnet, and you can execute the trade across all of them. I mean, that is the power. And then if you want to add another, let's say you have an app and you don't want to be affected by any other app, like you don't want your TPS, your gas fee, or anything to be at all affected by anyone else. That's where you could potentially do your own layer 2, kind of like what Coinbase is doing now, like DYDX is doing on Cosmos, I think, where they have their own chain. Yeah, potentially, what would be best is that if it also works with this non-EVM systems like Solana and Eldron and others. So that's my vision for it. Anyway, I don't really see it, like you say, James, that they're eating each other, because if we can share liquidity, we can share users, it just becomes a separated layer execution environment. Kind of like with the internet, you can plug in your own server. You're not eating someone else's server. But for that to happen, there needs to be interoperability. And that's what Chainlink and Axelar are doing. It's still not at the stage where we see this being operational, but layer 2s themselves are just recently becoming operational themselves in the last few years with Matic and Base and everything else. And if you look at it, both Optimism and Arbitrum and Base, I believe they all use ETH as gas fee. So their native coins don't compete with ETH for gas fees, but it's more for governance and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I see it. And from a tech perspective, I think, I mean, we'll still have to see what will win, if it's monolith, non-monolith. But even I don't see it as monolith versus non-monolith either, because if Solana is connected in the same like cross-chain system, it's just another execution environment. It's monolith, but it can. I mean, imagine if Solana DEXs can trade and route trades through Uniswap on ETH. It's gonna be fantastic. And at some point, I think in the coming bull market, it will happen with something like CCIP from Chainlink.
Awesome.
CTO, you have some parallel to telecom that you want to share with us with this discussion?
Adoption counts. So that's maybe the only perspective to add. I mean, we love technology here, all of us, and almost all of us on the channel also. But yeah, king is adoption. Need to win the adoption war at the end of the day, and then you can improve on the technology. That's also important to understand. If you have the users, if you have the customers, yeah, you can improve the technology. You can take good ideas from other places. That's the only perspective to add, maybe.
Absolutely, guys. Let's do a final topic. We have quite a few we haven't covered, but we're already over time, so let's take this one as the last one. And someone said that Tesla is pumping, and that's good. That's what people are saying. James are looking on all the monitors, other monitors, seeing the Tesla pump. But Tesla is also connected to Cathie Woods. Obviously, she's been very pro innovation, pro Tesla, this and that. But I see now 2 weeks in a row that she's dumping Bitcoin. I don't know if she dumped Coinbase or something last week. Maybe it was GBTC. So the question is she paper handing, or is she preparing the cash for the ETF? What's your view, James?
Yeah, well, it's complex. So first of all, when people see these headlines, they kind of freak out. Say, oh my God, Cathie's dumping GBTC, therefore it's bad. But remember, they own 5 million shares. She only sold like 3.5%. So it's a very small piece. Also, the way ARK work, because GBTC pumped so much, they can only hold a certain allocation in their fund of one particular asset. That's why when Tesla pumps, like when Tesla hits like 260, they'll probably have to sell some more Tesla too to stay inside that 10% threshold. And that's just the way it works. Also, it's important to know they do have their own spot ETF filing with Van Eck, I think. I could be wrong on that. I'm just going from memory. And what they're doing is reallocating. So she became very bullish on the Robinhood news as they're deploying more crypto solutions, and they're deploying into Europe. And they're thinking about relisting things like Cardano, Matic, and Solana again. So she became very bullish once again on Robinhood. So she bought, like she basically rotates from GBTC because the discount did hit 10%, and that's the lowest it's been since 2021, I think. And they moved into Robinhood shares. So it's just reallocation, like a butterfly. Follow the flowers with the most nectar.
But that's not following CTO Larson's strategy with hold the bullish trend. I mean, these funds, they reallocate. And like, what is the financial, is there a financial theory behind it? Because the financial theory I know is to not sell your winners, but the funds, they constantly sell the winners in order to reallocate and balance. So is that historically proven to be more like risk balance, that your portfolio is better and from a risk reward perspective? What do you guys think, CTO and James?
I think I don't think they're allowed to have over, isn't it, James? They're not allowed to have over a certain percentage of each of these assets, because
Correct.
if you think from a logical perspective, the mathematically best is exactly what you say, Ivan. You shouldn't sell the winners and reallocate to the losers in quotation mark, or the ones that haven't won as much, has been less successful. Mathematically, that's a worse average outcome if you simulate that across all stocks or all cryptos or something like that, because the one that is winning tend to continue to win, and the one that is losing is more frequently continue to lose. There's no fairness in business. It's the winner that keeps winning because they keep getting stronger and stronger. But from a fund perspective, then your risk and your volatility also increases. If you get suddenly, you have 10 small assets, they're all the same, but one of them starts becoming 90% of your fund, then imagine the calls you have to have with the investors, because suddenly the value of the whole fund starts going like this. People call, they lost 20% in one day and they're furious, and the next day people can't handle it. So they have to kind of average it out and say, take it easy, we're stable, we have slow and constant growth. So I think that's why they have these rules. They can't have more than a certain percentage. But I don't know in specific case.
And what they do is they build something like a constitution at the beginning, and they say, well, we're not going to hold more than 10% of any one asset. And this is written years ago, and sometimes it defies what they should be doing correctly, and they can rewrite the rules, but they choose not to. And I think that's a fatal mistake, because you look at the S&P 500, the Magnificent Seven make up 93%, 95% of the returns for the S&P 500. If you're not in those 7 stocks, you lost money this year. And when they sell their winners, it goes against what I call a black hole strategy. That's how my strategy is: identify winners early and get in hard and stick to that commitment until, of course, they get to an extremely top level, and then you bounce to something that's going to pop next. But selling winners is not a clever strategy. And she also holds on to losers too. Like, she bought stuff that is just, stuff that did well during C19, like Zoom and Roku and stuff, but they're just, they're zombies, as I call them. They're fully valued. So we'll see. That's my take. Have strong conviction in fewer assets. You don't get anywhere in investing owning 60 pieces of something. It just doesn't work mathematically.
Guys, on this note, let's put a period on this show. Thanks a lot for being here yet again. It was a fantastic show. Many topics. We're over time. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks to Matt and Bernard for monitoring the chat, modding it, keeping it nice and cozy there. And check the links below in the description to CTO and Invest Answers for more of this. Next week, we are at James's channel next Monday. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot, James, CTO, and have a good week. Goodbye, guys.
Thank you, boys.
Goodbye.
See you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.